We are going to go to California. Lord is an atheist, and he, him pronouns, wants to talk about a logical moral framework. Well, hey, Lord, you are on the Atheist Experience with Scott, Dickie, and Secular Rarity. What is up?
Hi there. It's so good to finally talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, Lord.
Great to talk to you.
Hi there. Hey there. So I was working on this like secular moral framework that I'm calling compression logic. And I wanted to bring it to you guys to see if it's not, just my own echo chamber telling me it works.
We'll do the best we can. Give us some stuff.
Basically, so the definition of compression logic is a system that ethically removes contradictions from structures, which is religion, economic, governments, relationships, everything. It forces you to critically look at contradictions and make them align with your intentions or remove them.
Okay.
All right. You've piqued my interest.
Yeah, I don't currently see any
and
problems.
Yeah, and so the moral aspect of it is that you have to consider like suffering. Does the system reduce suffering? Recognition, does it recognize all variables involved?
Okay.
Existence, does it preserve existence or remove it? And mobility, is it able to grow, learn, change, or evolve?
Sure. So let me jump in real quick because I'll just start off by saying so far from what I've heard, there's a lot of this that I'm a fan of. I kind of feel like I get the intention and I kind of feel like I get, where the logical conclusions might lead to. And I'm already kind of on board. Right. But the first thing that jumps out to me is, from the moral realist side, which are the individuals out there who believe that there are actual like moral facts out there, just like there is, answers to the question 2 + 2. Like there is an answer to it and all the other answers are wrong. Those people would probably jump in and say, well, hey, Lord, why would I care about suffering? Why would I actually care about recognition or mobility?
Why would you care about
what's
suffering?
The basis of that? Yeah.
Exactly. Because when systems contain contradictions, they experience collapse.
Okay.
And so when any of these moral bases are violated, collapse is inevitable.
So are you saying that if a moral
So if you have a
framework
system,
includes
for example,
suffering, then it would be contradictory? What I'm not really following you there.
Yeah.
How is that an example of a contradiction?
So what I'm saying is, if you have a moral system that increases suffering, if you have a system that increases suffering over time, it'll experience collapse.
I don't know. What do you mean by that?
The goal is to reduce suffering or mitigate it. You can't eliminate it.
Right.
What do I mean by that? So for example, if we're talking about like religions, right, where religions ask you to love one another, and, worship God and things like that. And you find out the religion continuously, it encourages hateful actions against marginalized groups and things like that. Then you can already tell that this type of religion will not last in its current form. It must change or be destroyed.
And why is that?
Yeah. What justification do we have for that?
Because of collapse.
Collapse is what you said was the outcome, but we're asking is what
eventually collapse.
Like what? Like name a system that has a contradiction that has collapsed. Would you say Hinduism has collapsed?
I would say, I haven't studied Hinduism enough to know that if it has reformed, but I would say Protestantism in America has certainly reformed to avoid collapse.
Right, but so what we need an example of a system that definitively has contradictions in it that all three of us agree are contradictions, and then the definitive example of the collapse of that system. Because right now, one of the things that I think Scott and I are both we're kind of bristling. Okay, go ahead.
So I see what you're saying. So we can take like American Revolution, for example, where Americans under British rule were not getting fair representation, for taxes and things like that. And they were getting abused by the colonial system. And so the collapse was the revolution. And America restructured into, the United States that we have today, the colonies, 13 colonies. Right.
What
so the
collapsed
British rule
in that
America
system?
collapsed because of its contradictions.
What collapsed though? Are you just talking about
the authority of the British in America?
I mean, I guess.
Oh, sorry. I mean the authority of the British rule in their system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what was the contradiction?
Like, I can try and break it down even simpler.
Yeah.
Well, the contradiction is that they were promised to have representation.
Okay.
And they weren't getting it. Okay. What break it down a little simpler for us.
When they did not receive representation. Yeah, let me break it down. Let's go down simple as like to a lie. Like, imagine that you lied to your friend about why you didn't want to go see him that day.
Mm-hmm.
And he finds out that you have lied to him. Now your system is going to collapse because in order for you to maintain the friendship, you must address the lie or not be friends anymore.
So are you saying that a contradiction really is just a failed promise?
Yeah, it's a violation of any social contract. It's a violation of intention and action.
Okay, so you make a commitment to do something, to honor representation or something along the, or to decrease suffering or something like that. And then if there's no follow through on that, then you're calling that a contradiction?
It's a contradiction. Yeah.
So basically you're saying that systems that lie to people will eventually be caught and discarded.
Exactly. Or reformed.
Okay.
So are you familiar with Emmanuel? Hang on just a second. I know there's a bit of delay. I know you weren't trying to interrupt or anything. It's joke. Don't worry. It's the audio stuff, not the tech people, by the way. It's literally just the machines themselves. Our tech crew is fucking amazing. I'm only saying that so they don't yell at me this time. Anyway, So are you familiar, Lord? Are you familiar with the categorical imperative that Immanuel Kant talked about?
I personally haven't studied any of Kant's writings.
Okay.
I've heard a lot. I'll discuss on this show. But I was wondering if it could be similar enough that my framework could just discard it.
Well, but potentially, I don't know yet, but there were some things when you were talking about the lie there, that definitely, brought me back to young little SR sitting around kicking his feet as he gleefully reads Immanuel Kant's musings. There is some really good stuff in there. It's called the categorical imperative. That's the concept I think you'll want to kind of try and look into, and maybe even all the way back to Plato and the noble lie. Don't worry about like writing those down or anything. This will be recorded. You can go back and check all that shit. But one of the things I definitely want to offer you to read if you do decide to go look more into Kant is look up the personal letters that he sent with a woman named Maria von Herbert. And you can literally find them just by searching her name, Maria von Herbert, Kant letters. Because this is an individual that studied Kant so profusely that she was willing to completely destroy her own life to follow through on the axioms that he presented. And I think it's a really fascinating moment where you can see kind of some of the problems of this type of categorical imperative, how that would play out in the tangible world around us, right? Now, there is also some really good explanation of how Kant gets to these things too. But I think that might help flesh this out a little bit. And maybe even, and again, I know I'm throwing a shit ton at you. It's great because you'll just be able to pause the video and just be like, what the fuck was that? Constructivism is another really fascinating moral concept here that might be beneficial for you. it talks more about how morality is this thing that we construct, right? It's not really a thing that's out there. Definitely not in the same sense as like hydrogen atoms, and not even really in the same sense as like math or love, right? Morality is even more of this constructed thing, and there's a lot of really cool people that talk about how we would construct that or why we would construct that a certain way. All of that stuff might help kind of shoring up a lot of these different places in your theory that you're working on. I would say there's still also some issues with constructivism too, you know, and the more that you dive into this realm, the deeper you get. Lord, I promise you, it'll get fucking frustrating after a moment. So make sure that you take a little bit of time and you put the book down every so often, and you come back to it and go, okay, what was he trying to say? What's Derek Parfit trying to tell me here? You know, but anyway, I hope some of that rambling was a resource or two for you.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. I had like vaguely looked at some stuff on Kant, and so I didn't really absorb a lot of his ideas and stuff like that. I was just
He's
more
dense.
afraid that somebody else already thought of this and that my framework is irrelevant.
Yeah, and it might be. It might be. I don't know just yet, but one of the things that I would say that comes up to me right away is the conversation that's been going on for a very long time between moral realists and moral anti-realists. And again, that's that distinction between those people that say like, no, there actually are moral laws and facts out there. And then there's these other people, and they're broken up into a lot of different camps, by the way. There's this whole group of people that have been studying this stuff for a really long time. And their view is that really at the end of the day, morality is basically just us saying like, yay, we like that thing, or boo, we don't like that thing. And emotivism is a really interesting concept, you know? I also think there's a little bit of flaws there. I don't think we have the perfect moral framework just yet, but I do think if we're being honest, when we do this investigation, we come to a much more humble place about what is good or bad, about why we would choose certain actions, how we justify various actions. And you tend to, not always, but you tend to be a little bit more charitable and willing to listen to the other side. And you know, that's been my experience seeing people go down this route. And honestly, I think you're going down the exact right path, Lord. Keep having these thoughts, write them out, you know, change this, change that, bring it to somebody, let them take a look at it, change them again, go out, read some Kant, go out, read some Mills, go out, read some, go look into all of this and keep formulating this and don't stop, you know. I want to pass it back over to Scott because I know I've been rambling a bunch. But
yeah, I was going to say my back is a little sore from carrying the show, so so I'm glad. It's about time you pick up the slack there, SR. No, Lord, I might be missing something here, but I just wanted to dive a little bit into what you were saying. So you're suggesting that moral framework will fail if it doesn't live up to its commitments and promises, and that's fine. I think that's pretty obvious. You also said that you were worried that maybe somebody else had thought of this. What is the unique spin that you're bringing to the table here? Are you suggesting that that people don't worry about that now, or that current perspectives on morality don't include that?
Well, I was mainly thinking like the point of this compression logic is to avoid collapse. Not that like collapse itself is evil. It's just what happens when systems contain contradictions.
Okay.
And
so as long as somebody follows through with what they suggest,
place that properly.
Yeah. Sorry, you finish. You finish. I interrupted you.
That is if you follow through and your intentions are aligned. No, it's okay. if you follow through and your intentions are aligned and it includes genocide, then it's not moral. Right, you need a system.
But what if you promise genocide and then followed through with it? Or what if you promise to bring in suffering and then follow through with that? I mean, that would avoid this contradiction that you're talking about, and therefore this collapse.
Repeat that again, Scott.
I'm just saying, if you have a moral framework that promises genocide and then does commit genocide, I mean, we could, of course, I think we would agree that that's a bad thing and that's an immoral thing, but that's not what your framework is describing at this point. You're at, if we're just looking at this idea of these contradictions, if you promise something, if you promise to, I will bring suffering upon you, and then you do that, then that's not a contradiction, correct?
True.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm saying is that suffering must be reduced. That's what makes it moral. People must be recognized. Mobility must be allowed. And so when you have a system that says we will commit genocide and they fall through on the genocide, it's still immoral because the people they genocided were not recognized and they were experiencing increased suffering.
So you're saying that morality is if it's okay to have a contradiction as long as you're not committing suffering, which I agree with you. I agree that encouraging suffering is immoral.
No,
but the way you're describing your scenario here, right, you're kind of slipping that in there.
Well, I'm saying that if you have a system that contains genocide and wants to be moral, then you have to remove the genocide.
So what do you mean by moral then? Sorry, SR. What last question, and then I'll shut up. What do you mean by moral?
Yeah, so I'm talking about like what I'm calling the four moral bases, which is suffering, existence, recognition, and mobility. If a system violates these four things, then collapse is inevitable. So if a system increases suffering, denies recognition, eliminates existence, and denies mobility, then the people in that system will collapse. The whole system, the ideology will collapse. And so what I'm proposing is collapse avoidance, which is giving people recognition, preventing suffering or mitigating it, right? That's what begins to make the system moral. And it starts with contradiction removal. So you can't do genocide because you're going to remove people's recognition, mobility, cause suffering and existence.
Sounds a lot like humanism to me.
Yeah, I would say there is definitely a good overlap there. But one question, and I know it might sound stupid. I know it kind of does. But truly, I mean, Lord, why would we care about minimizing suffering? I mean, really, what's the reason?
Why?
What's the purpose?
Well, the reason is just collapse avoidance or mitigation.
Okay.
You have to choose to want to avoid collapse.
Okay, so hang on. So let's
not evil.
Yeah, let's take this. Let's take that. Okay, collapse avoidance. That is a terminology there that I would need more information about, because currently, if somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, SR, you want to minimize that suffering so that you avoid collapse," I would say, what? Do you mean like collapse of the human race? Do you mean like somebody looks like a hypocrite on live TV? Do you mean that I instantaneously Thanos snap out of existence? What does that mean?
No, I'm so sorry. When I talk about collapse, it is the point in which a system fails, whether that's a social contract between friends or authority of a government or the legitimacy of a religion.
I'm on board.
At the point when a system fails, the collapse is when the contradiction in it is no longer ignorable.
Okay, so give me an example in history, any one example where that happened, where collapse happened as you're describing it.
Well, where collapse happened, I mean, like, we can talk about the Roman Empire and how these guys are fighting between
Yeah,
Eastern
let's talk about the
Orthodoxy
Roman
and
Empire.
Catholicism,
Did the Roman
and
Empire
they fought each
collapse?
other until they were nothing.
Did the Roman Empire collapse and disappear, or
the
did
Roman
it get
Empire
split
collapsed.
into the Holy Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire?
Well, the original concept had collapsed, and after
Maybe
it collapsed,
so.
it had to restructure or be erased, and we saw a
Maybe
restructuring.
so. But how do we know? How do we know that there is a through line from this specific concept? We can talk about recognition and mobility and all those other things, but how do we know that the suffering is what caused the supposed collapse of the Roman Empire, which again, I'm not even granting yet. I don't think there was a collapse of the Roman Empire in the way that you're talking about it. I think there was a reformation, a restructuring, which is fine. But maybe instead of using the word collapse avoidance, maybe you just change that terminology, you know?
Yeah, like I would say the Roman Empire that we saw before it had split and then dissolved, right, ceased to exist.
Sure.
Then it began to restructure into these two, like, you know, the Eastern Roman Empire and the Catholic Roman Empire. And as the contradictions in those empires continued, we saw the legitimacy of their authority decrease and decrease and decrease until we get to the Dark Ages.
Sure. But we're mixing up two different things here that I think are very important for us to hang on just a second. We're mixing up two very different things here that I think it's important for us to make sure we keep separate. We're going back and forth between talking about things in a conceptual sense and talking about things in a tangible physical sense, right? As a concept, the Roman Empire may have collapsed in various understandings of what the word collapse mean. Like Italy's still fucking there. You know, those buildings are still there, right? That didn't disappear. It wasn't as if on Monday we had Roman citizens and then on Tuesday we had fuck all who knows what's, you know, right? So the reason that I'm kind of poking at this just a little bit.
Italian citizens now, not Roman citizens.
Sure, we do have Italian citizens, but we also have Roman citizens because Rome is still very much a city in the country of Italy. I mean, so the reason that I'm kind of poking at this, and it may seem, you know, really picky and really pedantic and whatnot, but it's because in these types of constructions, in these type of philosophical discussions, we have to be as precise as possible with our language, right? And if we're going back and forth and we're discussing tangible collapse, right, of like an empire, or, you know, it might be fair to say that the government of Ethiopia a good handful of years ago collapsed. That might be a fair statement. It might be a fair statement to say a buddy of mine's shed in his backyard collapsed. You know, what does it mean to say that a philosophical concept collapsed? What does it mean to say utilitarianism collapsed, you know, or Islamic theology collapsed, you know? And the only reason I'm being picky is because I think if you make this language a bit more precise, I think you will have a more sound system on your hand. And I know I was rambling a lot, so I'm going to give you a minute to respond to that, Lord.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm still working on like words and definitions and trying to get this thing nailed down, right? But like the main point I'm trying to say is like the collapse is when you don't believe the system anymore, right? When you look at the contradictions in Islam and you can't keep believing it, or you have some sort of utilitarian philosophy imposed, but you see people are not doing better and you can't believe in that system anymore. That's the collapse. It's when you break up with your girlfriend because you can't trust her.
Okay, so I think that would be okay. So I'm sorry to jump in, but I think that might be a worthwhile thing going forward, is to explicitly state what you're when you're using the word collapse in this moral construction, you are explicitly referencing the individual now being incapable of holding true this ideology because of various contradictions or problems with it, right? Like that might be, in my opinion, a worthwhile thing to make sure it's out there. I might have some pushback. I might, but we've already been going for a good while, and I think you're on the right path for sure. So, Scott, is there anything else you wanted to say before we kind of wrap this up real quick?
Lord, I think I what you're saying sounds pretty good to me. I mean, and I feel like I'm missing something here. I feel like I'm missing some kind of connection here, because what you're describing to me seems in a nutshell like you're saying, if you respect people and you treat them like human beings, then they'll agree with you, or they'll go along with you, or they won't reject you. And I feel like that's a pretty common conception out there. And I agree with SR. I think that your use of the terminology is a little bit different than what I'm used to. I feel like there's an interesting perspective in there that I'm just not connecting with. And so you've stimulated some interesting thoughts in my head. And I like the way that you're taking things. If there is something that something new that you're bringing to the table, I wish I could understand that more, but I'm just not connecting with it, if that makes sense.
Hey, that's fine. Like, all that stuff, it's feedback. And I need to find what I'm not explaining to you properly. Because if I am bringing something new and worthwhile to the table, it needs to be properly defined. And so this is why I call you guys.
Do you think that I was kind of on point? Do you think that the way I was describing your philosophy here, do you think that was a reasonable explanation, or do you think I was missing the boat there?
Well, I would say the only thing that I would add to what you said is that when you're doing compression logic, which is what I'm calling it for now, you have to take your system and look at its contradictions and remove them. Then you can behave morally after that. It is a critical look at what you're doing, your systems, your intentions, your beliefs. And then after that, after you remove or restructure them, you can move forward and do what you're supposed to fucking do.
Yeah, if I understand the rest of it correctly, then I think I agree with what you just said there.
Right, and what I'm proposing is a way to do it without kind of just hemming and hawing and just thinking about it. I'm thinking that there's a way that you can objectively look at contradictions and morally remove them, so we're not committing genocide.
Well, again, Lord, I think this is a very great path to be on. And I think, like I said from the beginning, broadly speaking, I think I kind of get, the overall picture of what you're going for here. And I gotta say, I kind of like it, That being said, I definitely think looking into some constructivist type of stuff with like John Rawls, some stuff from like Immanuel Kant and the categorical imperative, and then some newer stuff too, like Derek Parfit. Like he's not terribly far back in the philosophy timeline, which is great, because he's talking about some things that are really, really tangible and prevalent today that, people like Descartes or Rousseau never could have come up with. But yeah, I think broadly speaking, Scott and I are like, yeah, this sounds like a cool little venture, and we'd love to see how it evolves and continues to get shored up. I do think already one of the problems you will find going forward is connecting back to the reasoning behind why you have said suffering, mobility, recognition, why those things are the important things and not the infinite other options. I will go ahead and give you a quick cheat on that, though. You could just take the stance that it doesn't matter. You could just say, hey, it could be anything else, but it is these, fuck it, and we move on. That actually is acceptable. So, but I'm going to drop you like a hot rock here, Lord, because we are at the end of the show. Thank you so freaking much for giving us a call. And I hope we get to call you, talk to you in the future. So